One TV, Afghanistan.
Thank you, sir. My question is still only Americans are exactly announced the amount of the money they're going to give and the number of the soldiers that will stay post-2014 in Afghanistan. What are the commitments of the other allied countries inside NATO to fund security forces in Afghanistan? And also, is there any exact number from other countries that the soldiers will stay in Afghanistan or not? Thank you.
This was not a fourth generation conference, but a foreign ministers meeting, and I stress this because we didn't discuss or decide on exact figures. You have already heard the US announcement, and actually we also heard concrete announcements from a number of other allies in today's meeting. There will be a fourth generation conference at the beginning of July, and that will be the occasion to announce the final exact figures. So I'm not able to provide any exact figures at this stage. It will be for individual nations to do that, but I can confirm that a number of nations have already come forward with concrete announcements. So in answer to your question, no, this will not only be a US mission, other allies and partners will contribute, and some of them in a quite significant manner.
Radio for Europe.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. How critical is a peaceful, democratic transition of power in Afghanistan for NATO? Thank you.
It's crucial. NATO is a community of democracies, and in democracies you have to build public and political support for your political decisions actually on a daily basis. And when it comes to providing troops to a training mission in Afghanistan beyond 2014, when it comes to providing financial assistance to Afghanistan, it is crucial, obviously, that our publics and political leaders in NATO countries and partner countries do have trust and confidence in the Afghan political leadership and in the Afghan government. So a credible political transition is, of course, of utmost importance. So I stress once again the strong need for a conclusion of the electoral process that truly reflects the will of the Afghan people.
Rustavi.
TV company Rustavi to Georgia, but let me ask you about Ukraine. You called Russia to fulfill 4 things toward Ukraine to escalate crises in Ukraine. Do you have any time term for Russia? And in case Russia will break these commitments to and will not fulfill your recommendation, what will be your next step? And you mentioned that you will not continue business as usual with Russia. Can you specify what do you mean? And will you cooperate with Moscow in frame of NATO-Russia Commission Council? Thank you.
No, we haven't set any deadline, but I would say the deadline is quite clear. Immediately. I mean, it's outrageous how Russia has broken its international commitments and its commitments to NATO-Russia founding documents. So I can't put it in any other way than request immediate positive steps from the Russian Federation to de-escalate the situation and engage in a constructive political process. Now, when we use the term that we cannot return to business as usual, it reflects our decision to continue suspension of our practical cooperation with Russia. But as you know, and that refers to the last part of your question, as you know, we have also decided to keep channels open for a diplomatic and a political dialogue. So at this stage, the NATO-Russia Council will continue to be a framework for such political and diplomatic consultations. And as you know, we had recently a meeting at ambassadors level with Russia, a meeting within which we had a quite frank exchange of views. And I think it's very useful that we have such a forum to really send clear messages to Russia.
Polish radio.
Wojciech Cegielski, Polish Radio. Mr. Secretary General, let me return back to Afghanistan for a while, if you don't mind. You said about the details of the resolute support, but only Americans gave the details at the table. On the other hand, in Afghanistan, we had a problem with the electoral process because of one of the candidates accusing the other of fraud. So the whole electoral process is getting longer and longer. So aren't you afraid of the, let's say, timing, that if the Afghan president will not be chosen in some specific time, NATO will not be able to, or the allies will not be able to lay down their proposals at the table, for example, at the Wales summit. So in other words, is it some kind of deadline that the electoral process should be finished in Afghanistan in a democratic way to give the NATO time to prepare the operation from 2015? Thank you.
First of all, let me stress, if I understand you correctly, it's necessary for me to stress that the US is not the only ally that has presented concrete figures. I also heard concrete and also quite substantial figures from other allies in today's meeting. But we have not made the final decision on the exact size and scope of the Resolute Support mission. As I mentioned, there will be a fourth generation conference at a later stage. So it's important to stress that other allies also came forward with concrete figures. So it demonstrates a broad commitment to our future Resolute Support training mission. Having said that, you're right, time is of the essence. And I hope to see a timely conclusion of the electoral process. The latest information I have received gives me hope that despite challenges, the electoral process will be concluded in due time before our summit in Wales, so that a new Afghan president can be inaugurated well before the summit. And both presidential candidates have declared that they are ready to sign the necessary security agreements shortly after their inauguration as president. So I'm also hopeful that when we meet in Wales at the beginning of September, we will have the necessary legal framework in place, and we will be able to announce that the Resolute Support mission will actually be deployed from the 1st of January 2015. That's our planning assumption.
We have this lady over here, second row, please.
Hi, Sally Shari from Iran's News Network. Mr. Kerry said just a few minutes ago that more funding needs to be given to the defense sector. And he said we only need to look at the map to realize why with Ukraine, Iraq, and Syria. And he cited the example of the shooting in the Jewish Museum in Brussels. I'd like to ask you, considering the number of Europeans who are fighting in Syria for the ISIS right now, over 2,000 people has been estimated. What are the concrete measures that you think can be taken to counter the actions that they could possibly take when they come back to Europe? Are we going to bar these people from coming back to their home countries? Because as far as we can see it, there is no action that can be taken. There is no concrete plan that can stop people like Manouch from coming back from Syria and engaging in terrorist attacks in Europe. Thank you.
First of all, I would stress that I agree very much with Secretary Kerry that we need more investment in our security sector. Also in that part of the security sector that NATO represents, namely our armed forces. And this is an issue that will be addressed at the summit, and I hope we will see at the summit a common commitment to increase investments in defense. But of course it goes broader, and fighters that return to their homeland in Europe are of course a matter of concern. You ask me what can we do about it? Well, without going into too many details, I can tell you that it is an issue that has been discussed within our alliance. It's not primarily a NATO issue. It's for security agencies more broadly. But I think one of the efficient measures to counter the risk from such foreign fighters that return to our countries is a strengthened intelligence cooperation, and I think that will be at the core of our activities to counter the risk from such foreign fighters.
The Japanese media over there.
Japanese Daily Mainichi. My name is Saito. My question is related to Afghanistan, also related to the partner. In Chicago, you invited some head of states who take part in the ISAF mission and or cooperated with ISAF. And is there any today agreement within ministers to invite partners into Wales? If yes, in which framework, in which country?
We are about to now finish discussions and decisions on the exact formats for our meetings at the summit. But we have not yet finished that work, so I'm not in a position today to tell you exactly the format of meetings. That will be decided shortly, because obviously for planning reasons we need to finalize it. But yeah, and we are about to now conclude our discussions on that. But I can confirm that our partnerships will be a focal point at the summit, and it will also be reflected in meetings with partners at the summit.
Thank you very much. That's a fitting end to this ministerial, and we'll see you at the summit.